Hi guys, it's me, Susan. Welcome to Cruisin' with Susan. It's May 22nd of 2020, and I've been asked to speak about risk and risk avoidance, or what I would rather call risk management, something we do every day and sometimes don't even realize it. Your day is full of decisions and choices, from the very littlest ones, what should I eat for breakfast, to really huge ones. And I don't have to list those. I mean, they're different for everybody. Right now, with the coronavirus thing going on, one of the risks we have to evaluate is, do I go out? Do I go out? Where do I go out to? Who do I go out with? What do I do when I go out? Things like that. So those are kind of significant risks. And the first thing I want to say is that I like to think of risk as a fork in the road, which really you could think of any decision as being a fork in the road. But for the purpose of discussing risk, one side of the fork is do the more comfortable thing, do the thing you're most familiar with. Okay? Not necessarily right or wrong, just do the thing you're used to. The other side of the fork being do something that's unknown. Do the thing you've never done before. Do the thing you're unfamiliar with. Do the thing that makes you uncomfortable. Okay? Also, not right or wrong, but conceptualize it that way so that you can see that each side has a risk associated with it, and your job is, and believe me, you can learn to do this in pretty short amount of time, focusing on the choice you have to make at that moment. Which one is worth the risk? Maybe less risk in doing the same thing you've always done, but maybe not. Maybe that's keeping you stuck in a rut or a pattern or a relationship that really isn't serving you well. So it may feel the easiest, but it's not necessarily the least risky. On the other side, doing something unknown that you've never done before, or that carries more of a consequence, maybe, like, what if I do this and then this happens? That would be terrible. So I'll revert to the other fork in the road and do the same thing that I'm more familiar with. Okay? Risks associated with that too, but a lot of them are based on the what if, like what I just did. What if I do it and then X or Y or Z happens, and those aren't good things? Well, you can talk yourself out of any decision by imagining the worst or even a bad outcome and then thinking, I don't want that outcome, so therefore I'm not going to take that risk. Okay, which leads me to my second point about risk, is that learning how to evaluate a risk that you're contemplating is a little bit more complex than it's been presented as by some people in the past, including myself. I did a video on Risk Management 101 probably a couple of years ago. Hold on a second, Rosie's here. There you go. And my subtitle was Just Say Yes. And it was about, really, I don't say this in a judgmental way, but it was a stupid risk. It was an emotional risk for me, like standing up and doing karaoke in front of a group of people that only knew some of them and not very well. Okay? That to me now is, I mean, who cares? Who cares if that makes you nervous? It's sort of like that being, I think it's important, but I think it doesn't really answer the question to say, go ahead and do it. There's another phrase that people use, feel the fear and do it anyway. Okay? Both of those ideas are basically risk is good, and the feeling you have that says don't do it, overcome that, ignore that, override that, and do the thing. It will be good. And that's not always true, I think. You know, if you're walking right beside a cliff and you want to get real close, you know, and you don't know how far a fall it would be if you went over, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you should feel fear and do it anyway. I think you should maybe, what I would do is lay down flat until I could get my eyes over the edge and see, oh my God, it's only 2 feet. Well, I guess I can go over there. Or it's 1,000 feet and there's rocks down there and I ain't going there. Okay, so feel the fear and do it anyway is not a rule that you can count on. It's something to evaluate in your risk evaluation, in your risk management moment. Is my fear coming from something emotional or something I'm projecting or imagining, or is it a realistic fear? Like, I'm not going to go to a gathering of 100 people who aren't wearing masks and are sitting right next to each other at this point in the coronavirus pandemic. That's not an emotional risk. That's not my fear of being around people. That's just common sense from what's been advised as far as how to manage your vulnerability to the illness. So, on the other side of the coin, however, is trust your gut. Okay, sometimes people will say that as a way of a rule you can use for risk management. If your gut says don't do it, then don't do it. That's equally flawed because our guts sometimes give us fear signals that are coming from our own emotional issues or from purely the fact that something's unknown, and aren't necessarily a reliable indicator that that's a poor choice to make or that something bad will happen if you do that. Okay? But it is important to look at what's going on in your gut, whether you're kind of feeling afraid and then saying, oh, screw it, I'm just going to do it, or whether you're feeling uncomfortable and letting that discomfort guide you back into the familiar side of the fork in the road. Either way, it's real important to have an engaged, self-aware mind so that you can do this risk evaluation fairly effectively. You have to know yourself to know what are the things, like go back to the example of the crowd. I don't like to be in big groups of people that are noisy and bunches of strangers, and I don't know, I don't like that. But that's not a reason not to do something. It might be a reason to really choose, is the thing worth putting up with that or not? But as I said, in today's world, there are other factors that it's like, oh good, I didn't want to go anyway, but I really shouldn't go as well. That's not cheating. That's just saying, you know, the choice is made easier sometimes by other variables. But you're allowed to make either choice that you want, any decision you want, you can make it, which brings me to my third point, accept that the consequences will be what they're going to be, and you will deal with those when they occur. We make decisions that are the best we really can do under the circumstances at the moment. It isn't like, oh, I made a wrong decision. It's, oh, I made a decision and the outcome now is something I'm not happy with. That doesn't mean it was a wrong decision. It just means now the next thing has happened that gives you information that you deal with then. I remember when I was just about to leave New York to move to El Paso, Texas, on, I wouldn't call it a whim, but I hadn't really known the man that I was going to marry very long before I decided to move there. Okay, and at a certain point, there was a real strong message that said this could be a major mistake. Okay, I was married to him for 25 years, and it was not a major mistake. But at that moment, I had to make a decision, and my decision was, I'm going to go and I'm going to see, and if it's not good, I'll deal with it then. I will move on. I will make another choice. I'm not going to all of a sudden back up and undo all of the decisions I've made that got me to this point because I'm uncertain about the future. And like I said, each one of you has the right and the obligation to do that analysis with self-knowledge, not just because someone else tells you, oh, it'll be great, or, oh, it's not a good idea, you know? you've got to be true to yourself, even if that means creeping over to the cliff, looking over, and making your own choice about whether that's too much of a risk or not. And when you do it that way, then there's not really the second guessing, because either path that you take takes you to the next thing that you have to face and decide about. So it's like there's no map that you're trying to figure out, or no blueprint that you should follow that's going to bring you to happiness. It's just going to be following your heart, making your best choice that you can make at any given moment, and then accepting that the consequences, while unknown, will still be yours to manage, just like every other step you take in life. So hopefully that helps. I know it's a little more complex than if I just had a rule and said do this and think this way and then you'll know what to do. But I think it's more realistic, and I think it gives you more options for choosing something that's based on you and not something external that you can't really own and move forward with in the future. Okay, so hope you all are well and doing good with your decision making and your risk taking, and please be as careful as you feel a need to be. And I'll see you soon on Cruisin' with Susan. Until then, live well, laugh often, and love much, even from a distance. Bye.